first discuss the updated targets we have defined for the group 2024, new target 2026 as well. Make a reflection on the market overview in general. How do we see the market to develop? And then flag for the highlights for our Q2 report as a whole. And then we will have some time for Q&A as well. Revised targets. Given the positive market development for bio-LNG in Europe in general, and especially related to the high CO2 emission certificates in selected markets, such as the German transportation segment, we came to the conclusion that it is reasonable and even profitable for the company and shareholders to revisit the technical plans, designs for our sites, and the major impact of those changes are related to Skogn 3. Final investment decision still to be made, as well as to some extent for our Mönsterås project. Mainly given these design changes, we came to the conclusion that especially Skogn 3 facility with high probability will not be commissioned by the end of 2024, and therefore it seems unlikely for us to be able to reach the 2024 production capacity target. Rather, we need to adjust it. This was one of the reasons. The other reason for updating the targets is the fact that these design changes, will imply an increased investment cost. And besides of that, also the general inflation for industrial goods in Europe have also affected us, so that there is a certain cost increase, which I will describe soon. So these are the key drivers behind this change, and the new target 2024 is to have at least 600 gigawatt hours biogas and bio-LNG as part of that production capacity, to reach at least 650 million Swedish crown total revenues in the same year. And the operative EBITDA margin has been kept on the same level as earlier. So the operative EBITDA margin shall be at least 30%. Besides of these 2024 targets, we have defined a new production capacity target for 2026 in order to reflect the postponement of Skogn 3, but also to give a view guidance on how we see the pipeline we work with new opportunities to be converted into additional capacities and then later on volumes. And therefore we have established and confirmed 1.2 terawatt hours as production capacity target 2026. Ongoing solidity level on the level of at least 25% is unchanged, and that is what we are going to keep. So these are the new targets and the main reflections on the background. And this slide will describe the background a bit more in detail. So as mentioned, it is favorable long term to revisit the substrate mix, the raw material mix which we are using at our sites, and especially given the high emission certificate values. And therefore we came to the conclusion that especially in Skogn we need to add the flexibility, especially related to the reception of feedstock, applicable feedstock, to be better aligned with the market needs and being able to deliver high value added bio-LNG products. This means that also the profitability is improved both in absolute and margin terms for the project. And then, as I mentioned, the total investment cost, as we anticipated 2020 as part of our IPO process, at that point of time, the total capex cost was estimated to be on a level of 1.3 billion Swedish crowns gross, before any investment grants from Swedish or Norwegian governments. This gross investment 1.3 we see now to increase by around 300 million to be on a level of 1.6 billion Swedish crowns. As mentioned, part of the cost increase, capex cost increase, is related to the inflation of capital goods, and one can well say that roughly half of this increase is related to the capital costs inflation in general, and roughly half is related to these technical design changes which I have described earlier. We'll especially want to point and reflect that for this increase in capital costs, we also get better paid for the bio-LNG, both in terms of the greenhouse emission certificates, but also even in the cases where we see the inflation to impact negatively the capital cost, meaning the capital cost, capex cost is increasing. Even for those volumes, we get we get better paid for our bio-LNG. So in total, we see that the project IR is improving and not decreasing given these higher capital costs. So these were the key factors related to, or key points related to our targets and the argumentation behind. A couple of words on the market development. We have already, I think, during the last 6 to 12 months, systematically communicated on how we see the market to develop. 3 segments identified as the most important ones as we see the market potential in the future: buses and heavy transportation, heavy-duty vehicles, maritime applications in shipping, as well as industrial use. During the second quarter of this year, we see that this development is getting even stronger. It's getting even faster. We announced ourselves the Altenone agreement for bio-LNG distribution in Germany on a level of 1 TWh. It's a very important milestone. Is a game changer even in the market, not only for us, but it's in the industry, for the industry overall. We also see the maritime sector to show increased interest towards bio-LNG, given the anticipated regulatory changes by EU in 2025, meaning that within the maritime sector, even renewable energy targets shall be reached. Details of that regulation still unknown. They are work in progress on the political front. Industrial sector customers definitely interested, however, a bit uncertain for us if they are able to follow the same price points as the two other segments described before. So overall, this development anticipated already a year back is strengthening, and we are pleased to have selected these as the most important ones for us. Also, the development in the heavy-duty vehicle market is strengthening towards the target or estimated share of gas vehicles, gas or heavy transportation trucks using gas as energy carrier, the market share to be on a level of 25%. This development is taking very well forward. With this slide, we are flagging for the importance of using a life cycle analysis when assessing different kind of, say, energy carriers and their impact for the CO2 emissions overall. It's not only the tailpipe which counts when using, rather you should take into account the full impact of energy production and vehicle production and usage as well. In that context, we see that LBG, bio-LNG, the same product, are very well positioned, especially when manure-based biogas is included in the biogas mix. And this slide is reflecting that benefit, meaning that we are absorbing CO2 instead of having any additions at all, net additions per kilometer or distance driven. What is very useful for us and important that we have seen now for a couple of months already the market really to be willing to pay a premium, a substantial premium for these CO2 emissions certificates in a way which we didn't see, for example, before the end of last year. And this is important for us when the additional production capacities for bio-LNG are in place and we are able to start delivering additional bio-LNG volumes with favorable CO2 profiles, especially in case of manure. So overall, we see the biogas industry upstreams, downstreams with different, say, value-adding partners in the value chain to be very well positioned to supply the market with a solution covering the full value chain. It's a plug and play. It is existing in each of the value chain parts. It's something which is proven and it's competitive in terms of productivity and pricing. So these are the key factors behind the very positive outlook for the future as we see as company and industry overall. So this was the overall background on the market development, which is going as expected or perhaps even a bit faster as we see it. Then we go to Scandinavian Biogas highlights and our quarterly report. As mentioned, the financial targets for the group are updated. Besides of that, we are also in the process of assessing various financing alternatives. We'll describe that a bit more in detail a bit later on. these financing alternatives, definitely we are assessing both equity and debt solutions for that. Alten agreement was signed during this second quarter. Alten is a vehicle fuel distributor in Germany. Currently around 50 filling stations dedicated to heavy transportation, heavy-duty vehicles, going to expand to around 60 by the end of this year, and very committed to support the green change in the heavy transportation sector in Germany. And we have signed an agreement with them on a level of 1 terawatt-hours bio-LNG during the agreement period before the end of 2030. And years 2024, 2023 and 2024 will be the ramp-up years. Next year, volumes still fairly low, but from 2025 onwards, we anticipate ourselves to be on a level of 11,500 tons annually supplied bio-LNG. And the agreement as such also includes a framework to even double the capacity or the volume within the agreement period, in case parties so wish and agree. And just to give a reference point, this 1 terawatt-hours biogas is equal of energy need of 5,500 trucks, each driving 100,000 kilometers. So this Alten agreement is really a game changer for us. It's a game changer for the industry. Price-wise, this is also implies a change on how we sell our energy, bioenergy. Earlier on, our pricing was mainly based on fixed prices with different kind of a certain kind of, say, annual index. Now it's much closer linked to market prices, both in terms of energy value as well as the green certificate value, and sharing thus the upside in a different way compared to earlier on. And very important to note is that our own calculation indicates that given our current sales prices for CBG in Sweden during the first half of this year and the prevailing market circumstances on average lately, it clearly indicate that the price for the energy unit would be double, more or less double, would we deliver the biogas today as bio-LNG. So there is a substantial upside related. We have also acquired at our Södertörn facility the pre-treatment facility. Pre-treatment facility is a necessary function when you receive sorted household waste and you need to pre-treat it in order to produce a slurry which is then possible to inject into the digesting process. This pre-treatment facility was owned by SRV Återvinning earlier on, our cooperation partner, and a interesting opportunity emerged for us to acquire the pre-treatment facility with a pretty good internal rate of return for money invested. Operationally, it doesn't imply any changes. One can see it's fairly financial transaction. And then finally, we were very pleased to get the approval and grant from Klimatklivet, the Swedish governmental organization working with the green transition investments and providing supports for those kind of investments. This 154 million Swedish crown grant is provided for our project in Skåne, Fagerhult, with estimated capacity on a level of 130 GWh. We now initiate the environmental permit process and hope to be ready for investment decision somewhere towards the end of next year, and then being able to start and have the capacity in use in 2026. Key financial highlights. Total revenue was on a level of 102 million, which is around 8 million back, lower than the year before. Part of that is related to our fossil natural gas business in Sweden, which we decided to close down last December. So it's more or less half of the change here in the sales volume. Operative margin, operative EBITDA and operative EBITDA margin was definitely below of our ambitions, only slightly positive, also impacted by the fact that the production subsidy in Sweden was not available yet. That is now available from July onwards. So with the operative performance, we cannot be happy at all, and we see ourselves now really heading towards the bio-LNG market and reducing our risk level related to government subsidies for the production. Overall cash flow from operating activities were on a level of 6 million Swedish crowns. And if we then take the key highlights for each of the business units, Sweden, as mentioned here, the total volumes sold energy was around 40 GWh, which was around 10 GWh lower than year before, but half of that was related to the fossil natural gas business, which we closed down, which we ended last year. So comparable figure is in the range of 10% lower, and this is mainly due to the fact that we have according to our own decision reduced the usage of expensive feedstock such as glycerin in our production, and therefore the volumes are somewhat lower for the biogas in Sweden. And the Stockholm Bio-LNG project in Södertörn, aiming to convert the biogas production in Södertörn, but as well a substantial part of biogas produced in Henriksdal into bio-LNG, is progressing well, and we are expecting ourselves to be able to start and commission the facility during the second half next year. As mentioned, we see certain inflation pressures for capital goods, and we see the impact also to some extent influencing our Stockholm Bio-LNG project as well. Described already the Klimatklivet resolution decision on Fagerhult project in Skåne. That's of course very positive. And then we have the operative EBITDA specific for Sweden on a level of 3 million Swedish crowns, substantially lower than year before. Here our expectation was that the overall production subsidy, according to those principles which were published earlier on, would be on a level of 25 million Swedish crowns for 6 months. So the part of the production subsidy which we have not received, we anticipate it to be on a level of 12 to 13 million crowns. Otherwise, the difference is related to the lower volume, self-evident, and then secondly, that besides of the glycerin, also some other raw materials or materials needed in our process have been more expensive for the part which we are buying on spot market with short-term agreements. Majority of all our agreements are raw material agreements, are long-term agreements. Norway, we were pleased to have a high production level in Norway, aligned with the higher production level a year before. Here, profitability on a level of 5.5 million operative EBITDA. Change compared to years before is mainly due to the fact that some of the marginal COGS related costs were higher, for example, power, to the extent which we have not made long-term purchase agreements. Then in Korea, where the normally very stable process and production were impacted with some short-term stability issues, and that lowered also the possibilities to receive household waste, and therefore impacted our sales to some extent. But luckily, the operative EBITDA is anyway pretty close to the same level as year before. So I think that these were the key highlights from our business units. And Anna, now you can please take over.
Yes, we can go further to the next slide. We have already gone through the income and the operative EBITDA. That was lower level. Due to the cash flow, we have the main part of the cash flow for this period is the gross investments that we perform due to our projects, mainly in Norway and Sweden, and that was amounting to 118 million gross, and we received some subsidies from Klimatklivet and Enova in Norway, about 4.5 million for the period. So the net investment was 114 million. The operative activities amounted to 5.8 million, so it was a positive quarter. And the total cash flow for the period was 114 million, and mainly due to the investments. I think we lost the presentation, Matti. Or did jumped out?
What did happen?
The presentation left.
Sorry. You see it now?
No, we see your screen. Now we see it. So, and yeah, so that was for the cash flow. And if we go to the next slide, we have the financial positions. Interest-bearing debt is 921 million, including the financial leasing, and 636 million is the bond. We have our own investments in the bond. That's why the net is 636. And if you exclude the leasing and the cash, we have a total net debt of 372 million for the period. You can take the next slide, I think.
Okay. Thank you, Anna. And then we as final point, discuss way forward. And here we have the summary of our 4 investment projects as part of our business plan. As mentioned, Skogn 2 is progressing very well. It's the commissioning has been started already, and we expect ourselves to have the first deliveries out of the facility early Q4 this year. Stockholm Bio-LNG is also progressing well. however, some cost pressures related to the capital goods inflation. We expect ourselves to be able to commission that facility summer 2023. And then if we go to Mönsterås project, there we see ourselves to be able to finalize negotiations with the technology suppliers in the very near future, and in practice hope to be able also to make the final investment decision during this quarter, Q3, before the end of September. Here we see the capital cost increase to 550 million. This is now the net after the grants. And then in Skogn 3, we are still in the progress of defining both the applicable design for the feedstock intake especially, and then also assessing the feedstock to be used and assuring that, meaning that the Skogn 3 final investment decision will be somewhat delayed for the future. So commissioning is estimated late 2024, probably early 2025. So this is the status with all these projects, and as mentioned, our target 2026 is to reach 1.2 terawatt-hours biogas, bio-LNG mainly. We see that given these projects, which we are now actively working with, including the Skåne-Fagerhult project, we will be on a level of 800 gigawatt-hours roughly. And then given the other projects we have in our pipeline, we see ourselves to be very well aligned both with the 2026 target 1.2 terawatt-hours and 3 terawatt-hours 2030, in majority of the cases bio-LNG. In order then to be able to execute project and the growth plan, we need to also assess our financing strategy, and that's a activity which has been commenced. We are assessing both equity and debt alternatives, and the overall financing package. The reasoning behind that is the higher investment costs as described. We have also acquired the pre-treatment facility in Södertörn, which was not included on our business plan earlier on. We have also we have not had access to the production support in the first half this year, and also the operating cash flow has been somewhat lower. So all these factors now influence the overall financing need and package. However, we have not exactly defined yet how we would like that to see and look like, but it gives anyway a pretty good indication on what we are looking for. And what I would like also to flag here for is the last bullet point on this slide. 2024 target EBITDA margin at least 30% is something we feel ourselves comfortable, even though the capacity levels are low, and thus the bio-LNG share is still lower than earlier on anticipated. But now, given the prevailing market circumstances and opportunities, and for example, the Altentoin agreement, they all indicate higher market value for the bio-LNG and the green certificate, and thus opportunities to have a higher margin for the project. So we clearly see that the EBITDA margin is really anticipated to improve beyond the 30% threshold as the bio-LNG share in our portfolio will increase additionally. So this was overall summary from our Q2 report and the new targets, financial targets, which we already published yesterday evening. So now we are open for your questions, please.
Yeah, hi, it's Adrian here at ABG. As you can imagine, my questions are more about sort of yesterday's news rather than the report this morning. And I'd like to start off with more of a sort of strategic question. If you do plan to go through with all of your expansions, even with a higher capex number, of course, that would raise the risk of having to take in new equity. So the question then is, are you determined to go through with all the expansions, or are you sort of also evaluating perhaps scrapping one of the expansions to get the capex number down?
We have not decided, of course, firmly that all these investments projects will be executed exactly aligned with this plan which we have today here. It is for sure related to the financing solutions available. So I would say so that this is of course subject to that the board and shareholders will see the overall financing strategy and financing package as attractive for themselves as well. And therefore it's a bit too early to be very clear on that question. However, from the company perspective, we of course see currently the window for additional growth and acceleration of the growth really to be there with attractive opportunities. That is definitely the case in the market.
Okay, and also you say that roughly half of the capex increase is due to these technical improvements in Skåne 3 and Mönsterås. So my question then is, these technical improvements, is it an option to not include them and make the plants as initially planned at somewhat lower capex?
Technically, definitely yes, but I don't. I think that your question then would be related especially to the Skåne 3 as project and not that much related to Mönsterås project. I would believe that the Mönsterås project, the changes are somewhat small, and the capex level anyway is more or less on the level as indicated. So I think your question as a potential option is more relevant for Skåne 3.
And is it an option you're looking at for Skåne 3?
The main option we are looking for is as defined here to assure opportunities to have a high value adding substrate mix.
Okay. And given that you say that these improvements significantly improve profitability, how come that the operating EBITDA margin target then remains the same?
We have now we published the EBITDA margin for 2024. For example, in 2024, still the volumes from Mönsterås facility are fairly modest, and they are not yet impacting the EBITDA margin that much. 2026 EBITDA margin we have not yet announced, given that the market is so dynamic and volatile. But as I mentioned already, given the current market circumstances, we clearly see that the EBITDA margin when taking forward should be much higher.
Okay. And regarding your sales target of 650 million, can you sort of discuss how you arrive at this figure and what sort of price assumption is used for this? Because, well, frankly, we see that target as a bit conservative given the production ramp up until then.
Yeah, from today's perspective, of course, we have the volumes we have from the Norwegian facility. They are based on a long-term agreement with a certain annual indexation. So there we see a limited change in the pricing, as well as with our Korean facility. We see the price changes. However, then for our Swedish facilities, as majority of the agreements or sales agreements are under negotiation as we more or less speak, given the fact that the volumes or the agreements will end in stages during next year, and thus will be renegotiated more or less all. However, then it's worth noting that part of those volumes have access to the very attractive pricing models. Part of them will remain in Sweden and will not have as attractive pricing model. However, should have the opportunity to receive the production subsidy as well. To reflect your question, I think that it's worth noting that the capacity and turnover targets, we have tried to be a bit conservative.
Okay, but are you able to say concretely what price assumption you've used for the 2024 target at group level? Sort of averaging everything out.
We have not published any thus so exact figure in terms of the pricing. I think I appreciate your question. I think we need to reflect how we could address that later on in our communication.
Okay, and also your new CapEx plans, how sensitive are they to further cost inflation? Because we are still seeing inflation sort of accelerating. Is there a contingency buffer in the new CapEx estimates, and if so, how large is that?
Our projects, investment projects overall, they are sensitive to in general to metal prices. We are using quite a lot of metal in our facilities, both in terms of tanks, the pipes, especially. What we see already and have seen is that the metal prices have now gone down from the peaks, which is positive for us as well. So we hope that the delay of investment decisions and signing final agreements also actually give us a benefit, that we get the benefit of lower metal prices when freezing the agreements. From that angle, we are looking positively for the FID later this year. Contingencies and unforeseens have been, we have had them in our all projects earlier on, and we have slightly even increased the risk premium and the say buffers in our planning. So I would say also that part of the CapEx increase is related to some increase in unforeseen.
Okay, I'll just round off with one question regarding the sort of 2022 numbers and going into the second half of the year. Is there any status update on the production subsidy in Sweden? Have you applied for the subsidy and have you gotten an answer yet? And do you still expect the same figure of roughly 25 million in the second half of the year?
Yeah. The production subsidy application and applications, yes, they have been sent out, so they are in the process. How long the process will take, it is the responsible authority is Energimyndigheten in Sweden, and this is a new role for them, so they did not have this function earlier on. It is quite clear that it will now take some time for them to really establish it. They have been using external support for defining this process, as far as we know, so we assume that this will take some time before they are able to make the decision. Then in terms of the subsidy level, our understanding is that and it's not all understanding, it's a fact that the budget from Swedish government, which was confirmed in the Swedish Parliament end of last year, prevails, and the budget is there. So there is no reason from the budget perspective assume that the funds would not be available. However, then of course these kind of governmental subsidies are also due to certain kind of EU regulation limits, and these kind of limits are also under review, given the high natural gas prices, which is the comparable product. How these kind of limits could impact the biogas subsidy, production subsidy, is still unknown given the fact of uncertainty on time periods and levels and so forth. So we see that, yes, we expect to get definitely the biogas production subsidy. What will be the final level? There is a certain higher risk than what we anticipated earlier.
Okay, so what would you expect for the level for second half? Is there anything you can make an assumption for that?
I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. It's not possible to reflect that question because we are not familiar. I believe neither the Energimyndigheten yet familiar with what kind of a way of calculating these kind of comparables and how that is done. It's an open question.
Okay. Well, those were all my questions. So thanks for answering.
Thank you very much, Arjen. Are there additional questions or any questions, Anna, via chat?
Not what I can see. Please free to ask a question if you have one from the audience. I think that was all. No one has raised their hands.
Okay. Then thank you very much participating our Q2 release conference call, and we wish you all a very nice and warm holiday season. Thank you. Bye-bye.